Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Canning's agenda briefing. It is 6 p.m. on the 13th of September 2022, Tuesday evening, and I formally declare the meeting open. My name is Patrick Hall. I'm the Mayor of the City of Canning. We start by acknowledging the Whadjuk people, the traditional custodians of the land. We also pay our respects to elders, both past and present. In accordance with the City of Canning Policy CM 105, agenda briefings are conducted for the purpose of providing elected members with a forum to ask questions of the City's administration and to receive answers to those questions to enable informed decision-making by Council at the following week's ordinary Council meeting. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1995, agenda briefings are not decision-making forums. Questions may be asked and answered, but there is to be no debate or discussion. Questions must be specifically relevant to the item being discussed. Elected members and employees must disclose any financial proximity or partiality interest they have in an item to be discussed and declare the nature of that interest at the commencement of the briefing or at the latest when the item is about to be discussed. If a member or employee has a financial proximity or partiality interest in a matter arising during a discussion, the nature of that interest must be disclosed as soon as possible after the matter is raised. Interests are to be disclosed in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act 1995 as they apply to council meetings. Individuals disclosing an interest other than a partiality interest must not participate in that part of a briefing relating to their interest and must leave the meeting room while the item is being discussed. Agenda briefings are public meetings and any information provided to the meeting by attendees must be publicly accessible. May I ask everyone present here this evening please to take your mobile phones, put them away, turn them off please, or at least put them on silent for the duration of the meeting. Cameras, just for your information, have been recently installed. You'll see them on the ceilings here. We have cameras here. The clarity is exceptional. You can basically see the fine print on iPads. It's incredible, and they have a Zoom technology, so I'm hoping the people at home will actually realise much better quality video and audio this evening, so hopefully we'll get a go ahead without too many disruptions. Just wanted to pause for a moment, of course, to reflect on the recent passing of Queen Elizabeth II and her contribution, of course, during her 70-year reign, and of course as monarch and Australia's head of state. So I'll be saying more on that matter. It'd be more appropriate to do so at the ordinary council meeting next week in the lead up to her funeral. I'd also like to just take a moment and just pause to take a moment to acknowledge the service of Councillor Holland, who has resigned from the City of Canning's Council, effective today. Thank you, Councillor Holland, for your service. Councillor Holland was elected to Council in 2015 with myself and a number of other councillors in the aftermath of the council's administration and being led by commissioners, and he was part of the first council formed in 2015 after that period. So, Councillor, I just wanted to thank you very much for your contribution to the city and also your service to the community, and wish you well in the future. Thank you very much. I'd also like to, just on behalf of Council and also the City, Lindsay, I hope you don't mind, I've just got a small gift for you I'd like to present to you, and I'll do that now. You wish they're invaluable. Just for the purpose of the meeting, I just left the podium just for a moment to hand Councillor Holland a small token of our appreciation. And also just to say, Lindsay, as I've spoken to the CEO, we'd like you also to take with you this evening your nameplate, which you know, we'd really like you to have that. I think with the city's memorial crest on it and your name, I think it's a fitting tribute to your time here and something that I hope has some meaning for you. So please take that at the end of the meeting with the CEO's blessing. And I'd invite you to say a few words if you'd like to do so.
I want to be very brief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for those kind words. Thank you. I will take that. It will be a good remembrance sake for me. I've enjoyed all my time on here. I thank you very much for the electors that voted me onto council twice. I think I've done as good a job as I can possibly do. There's nothing more. I gave them all. I gave a lot of my time and everything, but I was just proud to represent my community. There's nothing better than doing community service. There really isn't. If you count this time now with council. It's been over 30 years that I've been doing this, so it's been great. It's been nice to meet everybody. We have our arguments on here, we have our disagreements, which is exactly what it should be. We put our point of views, but the one thing I've liked about this council as opposed to any other council that I've ever seen is we've pretty well done it all with respect. We've never had some of the shenanigans that have gone on in the past in other councils that we've seen in newspapers and things like this. So I think this council's got a great future, and I wish you all well. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you. We move on with the agenda briefing for this evening. At item 2, attendances, I'm pleased to say there are no apologies this evening. The full council is in attendance. Approved leave of absence at item 2.2, there is none. Disclosures of interest, CEO, I'll ask you to please read any if we have them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In respect to declarations of interest, of financial interest and declarations of impartiality, tonight there are none.
Thank you, CEO. There are therefore at item 3.1 no declarations of interest. At 3.2, no declarations of impartiality. At item 4, question time for the public. The response to previous questions taken on notice. Any responses to previous questions taken on notice will be noted in the ordinary council meeting agenda next week. Questions from the public. The time set aside for public question time is 15 minutes, which may be extended if necessary. A question must relate to items listed on the agenda. If an answer cannot be provided at tonight's meeting, the question will be taken on notice and an answer will be provided at the next ordinary council meeting. I therefore open public question time now at 6:07 p.m. We have a number of questions that have been received by the city from Mr. Richard Aldridge and Mr. S. Sarker. Mr. Aldridge, I'll ask you to come forward and read those if you'd like. Or do you want us to read them? Yeah, we have them on. I'll read the first question. The first question from Mr. Aldridge is how many additional CCTV cameras will be installed on public land like parks, verges, city-owned car parks and city-owned land will CO 012 of 22 provide? Director, Canning Community, Dr. Sarah McQuaid to respond.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. CO012 relates directly to the Security Incentive Scheme. The Security Incentive Scheme is intended to enable Canning residents to apply for a rebate for home security devices, not just limited to CCTV. It is in no way related to the city's deployment of CCTV on city-owned land or assets. So no cameras in relation to that.
Thank you. Question 2, in what ways does policy CM196 ensure feedback from residents and ratepayers to our representatives prior to the city selling publicly owned land? The Director of Canning Commercial, Mr. Stephen Kane.
Thank you. Through the Chair, the overarching governance requirement for the policy that must comply with the Local Government Act section 3.58 subsection 3 subsection B. Where local public notice is required and submissions are received that object to the disposal of land, the resolution previously put to council and initiated a disposal process requires city officers to prepare a report to the next available council meeting. As the Act specifies these requirements, there is no strict need to duplicate the information in the policy.
Excuse me. Mr. Aldridge's third question is, I understand you intend to place notices on the public notice board at the libraries and you even intend to put a single ad in newspapers, but why can't you put all proposed City of Canning land sales on the Have Your Say platform so that residents can have an opportunity to have their say prior to council decisions? Mr. Kane.
Thank you again to the Chair. The mandatory requirements of the Local Government Act 1995 is for these matters to be published on the city's official website. Part 5, subsection 1, subsection A of the draft policy reiterates that online publication on any land optimisation project which required statewide or local public notice will be provided in the public notices section on the city's website, in addition to several other methods that will be used to fulfil the Act's requirements. The Your Say Canning website is an externally owned website platform that the city subscribes to. The city can't use this medium to satisfy the online publication requirements of the Act.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. We have questions sent in to us by Mr. Sarker. Mr. Sarker, I have the questions in front of me. Did you want me to read those for you? Thank you very much. The first question from Mr Sarkar related to CC 037 of 22. The item mentioned the commercial land asset strategy being adopted on 16 February 2016 with the aim of increasing non-rate revenue. How much non-rate revenue per year has been earned as a direct result of the strategy since then? And what was the non-rate revenue per year from property assets in the 5 years before the adoption of this strategy? Mr Stephen Kane.
Thank you, and through the Chair, the information requested will take us some time to consolidate, and therefore a response will be provided in writing.
The second question is related to CO 012 of 22. Through our rates, Mr Sarkar asks, have increased and city's revenue increased even further, why isn't there an increase in the internal budget for the security scheme? I'm going to read your third question, Mr Sarkar, because I understand Director McQuaid will respond to both questions 2 and 3 together. So I'll just read that question as well. Mr Sarkar's third question is related to CO 012 of 22. Why does the city think a rebate amount of $30 to $100 with only $20,000 a year budget is an appropriate replacement of the original AGM of electors' motion that proposed $750 rebate and 1% of the city's budget for the CCTV program that could have made our community safer? I'll ask Director McQuaid to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. The Security Incentive Scheme, which was first established in March 2020, is funded by the security levy only. Council considered a range of options for the levy. However, to minimise the overall cost impact to residents, no additional allocation was provided for the SIS. As detailed in paragraph 26 of the report, the city has written to the state government seeking its support to assist the broader community in accessing rebates for their home security, and not just seniors who are eligible for funding through the state government's senior safety and security rebate. In addition, the city will continue to look at alternative grant opportunities to support the SIS going forward.
Thank you, and those answers will appear in the papers for the OCM next week. Thank you for your questions. If there are not any further questions from the gallery, I'll declare the public question time closed at 6:12 p.m. Thank you. We move on to item 4.3 this evening, which is deputations. There are none. Item 5, items brought forward for the convenience of the public. There are none. Reports of committee meetings. Just a note that the reports from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, which will be held tomorrow on the 14th of September 2022, will be included in the ordinary council meeting agenda for the meeting to be held next Tuesday on the 20th of September. Item 7, reports. The first item is 7.1 from the Office of the Chief Executive Officer, Mr Michael Littleton to my left. There are no reports from that directorate. Item 7.2, the responsible officer being Mr Stephen Kane, the Director of Canning Corporate and Commercial. The first item is CC 037 of 22, the title of the report being Review of Policy CM 106, Strategic Management of Property Assets. The officer's recommendation is on screen. It also appears on page 4 of tonight's agenda. Councillors, are there any questions on that item? Councillor Bain.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just seeking the city's rationale and background behind the decision for only one number of evaluations, that is one, when the anticipated market value of a land asset is less than $1 million. Could the city provide that, please?
Director Kane.
Thank you, and I might ask Mr O'Connor if he'd like to step up and take any other questions in regard to this particular policy. But the city assessed that the valuation process we would go through, which requires us, unlike, say, a residential property who might have an estimate, to go through a formal valuation process, which is evidence-based, as each of these valuations would cost us somewhere between $5,000 to $12,000 to prepare, that one would establish the solid basis for and a contemporary basis for valuation of each property. And noting in the policy that it is open for us to obtain additional valuations if we fall short, one sets a minimum parameter for the process.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thanks, councillors. We'll move on to the next item. The next item is CC 038 of 22, proposed extension of lease arrangements for the Whaleback Golf Course. The officer's recommendation is on page 27 of this evening's agenda, and it's also on screen now. Thank you, governance staff. Councillors, any questions in relation to the lease arrangement? Councillor Holland.
How's Peter Hopkins? Is he quite happy with this new
We'll
lease
take that question
arrangement?
on notice and get back to you next. Oh, no, we can't. Yeah, sorry about that. I understand that he has Director Warren Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Holland, we've engaged with Mr Hopkins for some time on this. He's been awaiting the opportunity for this matter to be represented to Council for consideration. So there is some in-principle agreement. Obviously, the specific terms and the key terms will be presented subject to Council's endorsement of the recommendation.
Thank you. Any further questions on that item, councillors? Thank you. Then we will move on to CC 038 of 22, proposed extension of lease arrangements. Oh, sorry, we just did that. CC 039 of 22, late item, monthly financial report, August 2022. The recommendation is on page 2 of the late items agenda and is on screen. Are there any questions in relation to the monthly financial report? Councillor Holland?
This is the warrant listings as well, isn't it?
I believe it is. Is that right, Councillor Kane? Yes, it includes it. Mr Kane? Yes.
Yeah, for once I have no questions. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, we'll move on to the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you to Director Kane. With respect to paragraph 22 and the commentary about the revenue collection and the comments about the date of the first instalment, is that expected to normalise for the next month in terms of revenue? Is that just all into the difference between what was received last year and this year? Is that expected to normalise for next month?
Director Kane?
Yes, is the short answer. And to give you an example, the day after, which is the day after it was closed, we received $9 million in one day. So people who choose to hang on to it to the very last day of payment, the last day of payment was slightly different this year to last year. So we have no indication that there's any issue with the value of our rates payment.
Thank you. Any further questions on that item? Thank you, councillors. We'll move on then to item 7.3, the responsible officer being Director Graham Bride, the Director of Canning and Development. There are no reports from that directorate. Item 7.4, the officer responsible being Director Warren Bowe to my right, the Director of Canning Environment. The first item being EN 021 of 22, road safety inspection, intersection of Manning Road and Bungaree Road in Wilson, that is. The recommendation is on page 39 of the agenda and is on screen now. Councillors, do you have any questions in relation to that item? Councillor Bain?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 5 questions, if I may.
Yeah, of course, go ahead.
Yeah. I note that service vehicles park on the southeastern corner verge to gain easy access to the Telstra node. That's at the intersection. Would it be possible to extend the prohibited parking zone to include that verge?
Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, it would, Councillor Bain. We can make an adjustment to the attachment which depicts the parking restrictions and extend that around to the southeast.
Thank you. Councillor Bain?
I note also in the officer's report that the street sign will be relocated should council endorse the recommendation. The existing sign that's there now is rather untidy. It's got a few dents in it as well. Would it be possible when it's relocated to put a brand new sign there? I anticipate or think that the old sign used to have one of those large green signs on top of it, and that's just the white ones underneath. I was just wondering, because this is an entry statement into Wilson, if we can actually provide a nice sign, that'd be great.
Director Bowe?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, we can, Councillor Bain.
Okay, thank you.
When does the city expect that the pedestrian crossing will be upgraded?
Director?
We make no commitment to the timing on that other than to investigate some of the costings and to explore external funding opportunities for that realignment of the crossing. We're happy to consider that as part of the budget process.
Thank you. Councillor Bain?
Has Development WA given any indication as to when it might consider upgrading the Manning Road, Dumont and Ella Street intersection?
Director?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, we're not aware of any commitment from Development WA. I may ask my colleague Director Bride, who has some more information in relation to the
Director
move to
Bride. Thank you,
Development
Director.
WA.
Director Bride.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, Development WA are currently purchasing the site, the Bentley 360 site, off the Department of Communities. They are working or starting to work on a new structure plan for that area, and that'll have a they'll have a relook at the road network and how that relates to Manning Road and what sort of intersection treatments will be undertaken. But that is probably around about 6 months away from being formally lodged. So I wouldn't expect any on-ground treatment for a considerable amount of time.
Thank you. Councillor Bain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Last one. Would it be possible for elected members to receive a copy of that road inspection for Dumont Ellis and Manning Road, please?
Director Bride. Oh, sorry,
Thanks, Mr
Director
Mayor.
Bowden.
I'm happy to consider that and release the relevant information to all elected members, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. And just with your indulgence, can I just ask that the report title includes comma Wilson in there, just the suburb? Just for clarity, I might get, if you don't mind, Director, I might just ask governance to add that to the report if that's possible. Can I just get Wilson added there just for the locality? Councillor Sabiri.
Thank you. So with the report, the city is suggesting that a few houses on Manning Road approaching the intersection to ban the parking there. Are we sure that this action is going to satisfy the safety concern raised by the residents at the annual meeting of electors?
Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, the report undertaken by the expert in road safety indicates that the restrictions will assist. Applying the restrictions will also be important as well, and so we'll engage with our Rangers team to assist us in enforcing those prohibitions. When the vehicles aren't parked there, the performance of the intersection is significantly safer.
Thank you. Councillor Sabiri.
Yes. And in the report it says that the city's written to 11 nearby property owners and the Wilson Residents and Ratepayers Association, but there were no responses. Have we not yet received any responses as well?
Director Bowe.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I did check with staff before the commencement of the AB, and we still haven't received any responses from any of the residents or the association, but we can follow that up specifically with the association prior to the OCM.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, just through you. I was just wondering, with respect to how the recommendation is worded, how is it proposed that council will be updated with what proposed actions might be taken in the future? Because we're receiving the report, but we're not actually asking for any actions besides the parking prohibitions. When all the other steps within the road safety inspection findings are researched and then decided upon, will council be updated? I'm just wondering if, just don't want to get to the point a few years' time where we're wondering what happened with that and there's no formal way of actually alerting council into what was decided and so forth.
Director.
I can take that on notice, Mr Mayor, and give it some consideration. It may require an amendment to seek an update being provided back to elected members at a SIB, a strategic issues briefing or similar in the future, but we can consider that.
Thank you. Just with respect, councillors, can I ask councillors if they're on their phones to please put them away? We did ask that at the beginning of the... Councillor Sweeney, with respect, can I ask you to please put your phone away? Thank you. Councillors, we'll now move on to the next item.
Can I make a comment? Thanks. I'm just using my phone to make notes. I'm not using it as a phone. I'm making it to make notes of what's happening here tonight. So I'd like to be able to continue to do that.
Haven't you got an iPad you could use?
No, I haven't got one with me, no.
You don't have a council iPad?
Not with me tonight, no. I've got my phone. That's why I'm doing it.
Okay, well, if you're making notes in your phone, I'll allow it, but thank you for clarifying, because I've just asked council to put them away, and also members of the public gallery, so to have you sitting there on your phone, I thought I needed to bring it to the attention of the council, so thank you for your clarification. Please try to bring your iPad next meeting if you can. We move on to EN 022 of 22, Hossack Park South Sports Lighting. We've got dash FM 033.2.87. The recommendation is on page 50 of tonight's agenda and is also on screen right now. Thank you, governance. Councillors, do we have any questions in relation to that matter? No questions, thank you. We shall move on then to item 7.5 on the agenda, the responsible officer being Dr. Sarah McQuaid, the Director of Canning Community. The item is C0012 of 22, review of security incentive scheme terms and conditions. The officer's recommendation appears on page 59 of the agenda and is on screen. Any questions in relation to that item? Councillor Hardeep Singh.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director McQuaid. Security item and devices table, where the first item says CCTV system. Do we have a definition what comes under CCTV system? Will we accept one CCTV camera as part of the security incentive scheme if someone submits a just install one camera rather than a full-on system with, how do we define it? Thank you.
Thank you. Director McQuaid.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's a good question, Councillor Singh. There is a definition of a system which would require more than one camera, but given the rebate amount, one camera won't be an issue under the terms of the rebate.
Thank you. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Follow-up question. Step 1 of the procedure. When you're ready to purchase and/or install security items, email this email address to arrange a pre-approval to access to the scheme. Do we have any form, or will it be just a simple email, someone telling what they want to do, and City will reply?
Director
just more clarification on that, please. Thank you.
Director McQuaid, yes.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll actually ask Shane Mallon, Manager of Community Safety, to answer that.
Mr. Mallon has appeared miraculously at the podium. Thank you, Mr. Mallon. Good evening. Could you answer that question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that was a new step in response to councillor feedback. The intent was just an email, just to simplify the process.
Thank you. Anything further, councillor?
Yes, one last question,
okay.
Mr. Mayor. I've noticed that in condition, the first condition is all devices requiring hardwired electrical supply, including sensor lights, must be installed by a registered electrician. Just for the purpose of clarification, if someone buys a single CCTV camera, which is literally like a phone charger, comes with a charger, it's plug and play, do we define as hardwired electrical, or how will that be, under which category it will fall?
I've got Mr. Mallon, just for the sake of the recording, nodding. Oh, Director McQuaid, go ahead.
Thank you. Hardwires means something is installed and put through to your electrical box effectively. Plugging a device into a power point is not considered hardwire. So it's not going to prevent anyone going and buying a wireless charged one that they can just put up. But if they are looking to install security lights or sensor lights, then that will need an electrician.
I think it's more of a safety issue. We're just actually saying to people, if you're going to do electrical work, that electrical work can't be done by you unless you're a licensed electrician. So it's just I think we're just covering our bases there, aren't we?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Struggling for the word there, sorry. Any further questions? Thanks, councillors. We shall then move on to item 8, notices of motion for consideration at the next ordinary council meeting. We do have a notice of motion, I believe, that will come in as a late item at some stage. Urgent business tonight, there is none. Confidential matters this evening at item 10. There is a confidential matter that we'll be discussing. Council will now consider that confidential item. I thank members of the public for their attendance tonight and ask that they please leave the chamber in order for council to consider the item. Governors, can you confirm that the live streaming has been paused whilst the confidential item is discussed? I might just read the item heading. I think there's no issue with that. It'll be C0013 of 22. The item to be discussed under confidential cover is expression of interest 10/2022 for lease and operation of Canning Lodge residential aged care facility. Thanks, councillors. Thank you, councillors. We're now audio and video live streaming the meeting. We've come out of our confidential session. It's 6:37 p.m. There'll be no further discussion on that item, which will be discussed at next week's OCM. We move to item 11, which is closure. At item 11, there being no further business, I now formally declare the agenda briefing closed to the time being 6:37 p.m. on Tuesday the 13th of September. And I thank everyone for their attendance. Thank you and good night.